NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, that Obama has called for and signed, stipulates that even American citizens can now be targeted by the military, picked up,
we're gonna
and
take your
imprisoned.
AR-15.
It's hard to watch something you love destroy itself, to see it fall apart. Disaster always feels so distant, detached. Someone else's struggle in some faraway place. It's not until it's in our city, at our doors, that we realize how fragile we are. All of us. All of this.
No, baby, Steven. Mommy, I'm here. Mommy's right here. No.
Please.
And when it hit, when it came down hard.
Give me my family back.
And we fell. We buried ourselves in anger, fear, in the instinct to survive.
I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm just not strong enough.
Where's the drive, son?
Please, no more.
And the real truth is, no one watched. No one saw, wanted to see.
Where you going?
Tragedy is invisible. People turn away from it and run from it if they can. And it's hard knowing that you belong here, that your purpose lies amongst all this pain. But someone's gotta be there to pick it up, to push back, put the first piece back together, put us all back together.
November, Black Friday. A man-made virus, later called the dollar flu, is released onto the unsuspecting American public during one of retail's busiest days of the year. Based on the original smallpox virus, it was coated onto banknotes by its creator, Dr. Gordon Amherst, and distributed in Abel's department store, where it quickly spread from person to person through the exchange of money. While the virus was still in its incubation period, it continued to quickly infect shoppers and tourists across New York City, before the first symptoms of the virus could be seen. December 1st. Symptoms of the dollar flu begin to emerge. Medical facilities are quickly overwhelmed by the number of cases. The federal government's disease control division and other federal authorities stepped in and quickly declared a state of emergency. Unfortunately, it was too late. The virus had spread too fast, and the option of containment seemed impossible. The National Guard was called in, and the whole of New York City was put on lockdown. December 6th, President Lawrence Waller orders a lockdown of New York City. The US military was called in to seal off any means of exiting the city. Sarah begins mass vaccinations, focusing on the first responders and health workers, before moving on to the public via clinics, workspaces, and large parking lots.
This is my work ID. I work for Well Cornell Medicine on 68th in York. I do comparative pathology research. We deal with biohazardous materials and radiation particles. We inject animals like rhesus monkeys, rats, and mice with diseases and radioactive agents. 2 weeks ago when I went to work, I noticed the security guards were in Tyvek hazmat suits and they were armed, which is not normal, but I didn't pay it any mind. I go upstairs to work, I clock in. My boss is like, yo, listen, you're not needed, but we need you to surrender your Geiger counter. My Geiger counter was attached to my ID because we deal with radiation emissions in my department on the 7th floor, which is the only department that deals with radiation. But they wanted me to surrender my Geiger counter. When I left work, the only people that were left in my building's facility were the scientists, the professors, the researchers, and security guards that were armed. It's not the virus that's getting people sick. It's 5G network from the radiation. And the reason why they have me surrender my Geiger counter is so if I'm in a proximity of people that have 5G networks, my Geiger counter is going to detect that I'm in a proximity of radiation. That's what's getting people sick. That's what's getting people with respiratory issues. That's why some people are dying. Now, my homie works for Verizon. He got a message via email from corporate instructing him and his 100-man crew to pump 5G network cables throughout the tri-state area, whether buildings or houses were abandoned or not. The letter said, if your crew gets sick, we'll send them home and you keep on working. Don't worry, when they say that the oil is short, you'll be first dibs to get the oil.
The oil to cure.
Exactly.
That's deep, bro. I'm glad you came on and told my audience that just now because, damn.
I've been trying to hit you up for a minute, man, cause shit is real, and niggas don't really know what's going on. They believe in what the media is telling them. Just understand, whatever the media is saying they're gonna do, they're not gonna do. They're telling you they're gonna give you $1,200 stimulus check for this money. How? When they say that the money is gonna be contaminated, then they're gonna shut down the banks worldwide. How the fuck are you gonna cash that check if you're quarantined and you can't leave and the banks are shut down? They're doing technology and manipulating the people to believe a big ass fucking lie. Understand, whatever the media is saying they're gonna do, they're not gonna do.
That's a fact. I believe so too, bro. And a lot of people is not aware of 5G and the health benefits of it. 5G is game over. It's frying us. So it's just like in Wuhan when that's the first place they really rolled out 5G.
Exactly.
And I believe here it was New York City, obviously. You know what I'm saying? Because in New York, look at the rates going up of people with coronavirus.
Exactly.
And how they diagnosing all these people when they say they ain't got no test?
That has the coronavirus?
Right or wrong?
Facts. Yo, you know what's crazy? The symptoms that they're saying is caused by this virus are the same exact symptoms from radiation contamination. They're talking about loss of taste, loss of smell, hair loss, vomiting, diarrhea. Pretty soon they're gonna say a new symptom is blood in your stool and blood in your urine, constant parchness, that you'll have an unquenchable thirst because radiation boils the water molecules in your brain, in your respiratory tract, and in your reproductive system. So don't be surprised when this shit disappears and 10 years later it comes back, because that's what's going to happen. You're sterile and you can't produce. There was a movie called Children of Men or The City of Men.
Children of Men, right.
Where a war came out and for years no one was able to reproduce. But one woman gave birth to a baby and it changed the world. These niggas are literally acting out scripts from movies and fictional books to instill fear and in the media propaganda. Fear is the lowest vibration, and that also weakens your immune system, which is why they're also saying that kids are getting infected and they're gonna mandate or force inoculate the vaccine on niggas. The FDA takes 1.5 years to approve of a vaccine. Why within 3 months of the year, all of a sudden they have this vaccination ready to be mandated, forced forced on you, whether you say yes or no.
Practitioners, doctors, nurses, community workers working with communities to detect cases at community level. And the most likely person to become a case is someone who's been a significant contact of another case. And at the moment, in most parts of the world, due to lockdown, most of the transmission that's actually happening in many countries now is happening in the household, at family level. In some senses, transmission has been taken off the streets and pushed back into family units. Now we need to go and look in families to find those people who may be sick and remove them and isolate them in a safe and dignified manner. So that's what I was saying previously about the transition from movement restrictions and shutdowns and stay-at-home orders can only be made if we have in place the means to be able to detect suspect cases, isolate suspect confirmed cases, track contacts, and follow up on the contact's health at all times, and then isolate any of those people who become sick themselves.
They have a post. Italy, only 12% of COVID-19 deaths list COVID-19 as cause. Report shows up to 88% of Italy's alleged COVID-19 deaths could be misattributed. And they talk about the report, citing Professor Walter Ricciardi, in which he says, the way in which we code deaths in our country is very generous, in the sense that all the people who die in hospitals with the coronavirus are deemed to be dying of the coronavirus. On re-evaluation by the National Institute of Health, only 12% of death certificates have shown a direct causality from coronavirus, while 88% of patients who have died have at least one premorbidity, i.e. other type of disease. Many had 2 or 3. The president of the Italian Civil Protection Service actually went out of his way to remind people on the nature of Italy's fatality figures in a morning briefing on March 20th. I want you to remember these people died with the coronavirus and not from the coronavirus. The coronavirus and not from the coronavirus. What does this actually mean? It means that the Italian death toll figures could have been artificially inflated by up to 88%. If true, this would mean the total number of Italians who have actually died of COVID-19 could be as low as 700, which would bring Italy, currently a statistical outlier in terms of COVID-19 fatalities, well in line with the rest of the world. It means thousands of deaths currently widely attributed to COVID-19 and being used to justify the introduction of measures equating to medical martial law may not have died of COVID-19 at all, but of their serious chronic comorbidity, cancer, heart disease, etc.
So it appears the mainstream is even figuring this out. So we went from maybe 2 deaths in Italy to suddenly tens of thousands of people have died, and now it's coming out that, well, tens of thousands of people have died because people die. They didn't die from the coronavirus, they died with the coronavirus. And I cannot stress this enough. While everyone thinks that this is somehow fear porn, well then, if the disease is something that's already existing in every human being, and it's actually just an exosome that is found in every human being, and the World Health Organization is calling this naturally found cell in your body the disease, if all of this is just nothing, why did Virginia just lock down until June 10, 2020, another executive order? Why is it they're passing laws all over the United States, making it easier for them to lock you in your house, take bodily fluids, force vaccinations? You see, unfortunately, I'm not writing these, nor am I writing to my governor. So I got a lot of emails, and it's starting to piss me off, so I'm going to have to explain something to you whether you like it or not. And this happens to me every time. Every time I have someone come on my YouTube channel with me, they end up going wrong. Well, we've got another one. Brandon, the big sib, is in denial. Really, really bad. He seems to think that all of this isn't happening at all, and that by simply writing a letter to your governor, you'll be fine. This is one email, and it basically mirrors what I thought about Brandon. I found his law expertise interesting a few months ago when we still had a semblance of society. He's literally sitting there right now like nothing's going on, and people like us are fear-mongering. We need to calm down, he said tonight. A letter to the governor is delusional, and it's poison to tell people that right now. I totally agree, and I already told him that I privately texted Brandon and said, dude, you're in denial and it's breaking my heart. And he said, no, you're wrong. Well, actually, I'm not wrong at all. Some of us can actually see the forest for the trees because this continues to happen every single solitary day. And as you just heard one of the spokesmen for the World Health Organization, they need to transition now from locking people in and isolating them to going door to door and find out where this virus is hiding. Even though this virus is a total made-up thing. The mainstream is starting to say that all these countries giving all these deaths are actually just people dying and then getting slapped with the COVID-19 label afterwards, okay?
March 14th was an important day. That was the first day the presidential seal was not on the podium, nor was the flag behind the president, as you see in these pictures. And again, this was the first time there was no presidential seal or flag present. And this time, Trump is wearing a USA hat for some reason. The new podium sign says, "The White House," and underneath it says Washington. Now, Trump wears the hat. We have the new podium and sign. And as you can see in more recent, this was a couple days ago. This was the current one, which is Monday, March 23rd, where they were giving another update on the current COVID-19 operation. And that's what I'm going to call it from now on. The president declared a national emergency. A lot of people do not understand what that actually put into motion. People think, okay, national emergency, he's just doing this to protect the public. But many executive orders kick in as soon as a national emergency is declared, such as Executive Order 10995. Which provides for the government to take over all communication and media. Executive Order 10977 provides for the government to take over all power, gas, fuel, and minerals. Executive Order 10988 provides for the takeover of all food resources and farms. Executive Order 10999 provides for the government to take over all modes of transportation, trains, airports, highways, roads, everything. Seaports as well. Executive Order 11000 provides for the government to mobilize people into work brigades under government supervision. Executive Order 11001 provides for the government to take over all health, education, and welfare functions. Executive Order 11002 designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration for all persons. Executive Order 11003 provides for the government to take over all airports and aircraft. Executive Order 11001 provides for the government housing and financial authority to relocate communities and designate areas to be abandoned and designate new locations to move populations. Executive Order 11005 provides for the government to take over all railroads, all inland waterways, and storage facilities. And Executive Order 11490, signed in by Jimmy Carter on July 20th, 1979, wraps all those up into one ball and provides for the, get this folks, when all that happens, when the Commander-in-Chief declares a national emergency, it puts all operations, all these things, under the purview of the FEMA director. Did you know that, folks? Now, I haven't found an executive order that rescinds all that. So, all is needed is for a national emergency to take place, and the director of FEMA now can execute any of those executive orders.
All right, so you guys see what's going on in the world. I mean, if you're not paying attention, I think you need to get on board and get what you need for your home while you still can, because obviously they're gonna probably shut down the mail services. They're talking about shutting down the USPS, I think around June. It's still in talks, but everything they talk about nowadays, they're pretty much doing. So just get what we need now while we still can. If you have cash, you might as well use it to get what you need, because in the future, it's probably not gonna be worth anything. I think this virus is a ploy to kind of hide the fact that we're in a failing economy, and I know you guys think the economy was doing super good, which made absolutely no sense to me anyways, that it was doing as good as it was. Obviously, I know about quantitative easing and bank runs and stuff along those lines. They're pretty much just buying up on all their own debt and boosting the economy up, and then getting us, like ourselves or regular people like you and I, to get into the stock market, and then they did exactly what they did. They crashed it, and then they took all the money. Right now they're holding the float with the stimulus package, so right now it's looking good, but at the end of the day it's probably not going to be too good, because I don't think the dollar's going to be around for too much longer. A lot of people don't realize this, but paper currency only lasts maybe 50 years tops when it comes to being the world number one currency, which was the United States dollar. And before that, it was the British pound. So these dollars do crash, so you got to expect this stuff. But I'm pretty sure we're going to move into a new digital currency with this stimulus package Trump had put out there. They bailed out the banks and stuff with the stimulus package, and the banks turned around and bought up all the silver and gold, which is why it's so hard for the American people to find silver and gold. So if you weren't buying silver and gold when the economy was doing good, you're probably going to be missing out on a lot of wealth in the future. A lot of people can capitalize right now and become wealthy during this crisis, like they always have, doing a multitude of crashes throughout the past. I mean, if you think about it, we had the Great Depression. They're doing the same thing when they did then, they're doing today. The economy crashes, and all these big businesses and banks buy up all these businesses, and now they own everything. So they're going to own a lot more of the country. It's going to be the biggest transition of wealth this nation's ever known, obviously, because that's what it's all being set up for, in my opinion. So I pray that you guys paid attention to the channels like mine and other channels, and did what you needed to do to get yourself better prepared for the storm that's coming, because we can stockpile all the food, water, medical supplies that we're going to need to weather the storm, but that's only short term. You're going to need some kind of gold and silver to see it to the end. And I don't know if you guys heard about this. They've had bought up all the food resources, the government. We already know this. They bought up all the emergency food and stuff along those lines. So it's going to be harder to find food like that. So just get to the grocery stores and buy cans. Now, what they're trying to do now is ban seeds. Now, if they ban seeds, that means you can't grow your own food. I mean, they started in Vermont and Delaware, I believe it was. I don't know if that's going to be going throughout all the other states where they do that, but that's bad in my opinion. You can't tell people that they can grow our own food so they can eat. I guess they want us to be dependent on the government, and then when it comes to the continuity of government and stuff along those lines, we already know our politicians, Congress, and Trump, and all these guys are going to go underground. And you already heard what he said at the executive when he put the country in this, and I think it was a state of emergency, a national emergency, or something along those lines. These guys are going to go underground. He left all the power to FEMA. That's why we don't see the president's seal on the podium or the flag behind the president. I mean, I don't know if he has the power of the country still. I think he left it in the hands of FEMA, and I'm pretty sure that's why FEMA had all these coffins within this nation. We've heard so many stories about FEMA throughout the years. Kind of makes you kind of skeptical about this organization. Do they really have our best interest in hand? I'm not saying that they're the bad guys or the good guys, but I like to think for myself. I like the people to tell me how to think. I have a brain on my body for a reason, just like you have one for yours. Your head on your shoulders is the in my opinion, the best way you're going to perceive the world. I don't need people to tell me how to think. I can do that for myself. I can take information and I can filter the way I do, but that's what I do for you guys. I'm just going to put it out there. This is just my opinion, just to get that out of the way. All right, so when these guys go underground and stuff along those lines, like I said, FEMA is going to be in control of everything. And you seen what the guy was saying with all these executive orders that come into play when this stuff gets signed in due to the state of emergency or the national emergency. These guys are already starting to take control of the roads. As you can see, they got roadblocks. They're shutting down roads in Indiana and stuff like that. Obviously, they're taking control of the water supplies, and you know they have these camps, so we're going to be working out of these camps, and it's going to be monitored by the government. So I mean, whatever's coming, it's going to be really bad. It's going to be a really bad storm coming. So I think it's best that we all get prepared. I mean, they're even paying prisoners to dig mass graves. They're paying prisoners $6. That's like $1 million in prison. These guys work for change. They're getting dollars now. They're getting paid more than the American people without jobs, just to dig graves. So we just need to stay focused and pay attention to what's going on with that. I'm trying to look around here, see if I have any more information. Oh, you already know there's going to be low shortages on food as well, because I mean, I have here in my notes that we had a low crop yield last year. If you guys can't remember that, we had floods and a lot of the crops were freezing over and stuff like that along those lines. We had a lot of terrible storms hitting our crops up last year and the year before. And the government was giving, or Trump was giving these farmers like money, stimulus, like loans and stuff like that. But a lot of farmers didn't want to take the loans because obviously if you have a low crop yield and you take the loan from the government, you can't pay that loan back. And if you can't pay that loan back, the government takes your land. And so it sounds like a big scam in my opinion too. So I hope a lot of these farmers didn't take the loan and just cut their losses and, you know, did what they had to do to survive like most people are doing today. Because without crop yields like that, we're probably going to be more short on food, and it's gonna be down here from here, guys. I mean, I can like try to show you a light at the end of the tunnel, but then I'll be lying, because I'll be lying to myself, and I'm not here to lie to you. I'm not here to put fear into you. I just want you guys to see what's going on, and I want you guys to see how I perceive it. I've been paying attention to this stuff for the longest, and everything that everybody's ever talked about on these channels, or just in the world of nature, or even in the news or in the movies you see it, it's all starting to happen right now. So what goes from here is entirely up to the people. Are we gonna allow ourselves to be done dirty if it does come down to that? I know a lot of people are not going to sit still in their homes for too long, especially if they don't have any no food to provide for their family. I mean, some of these people out there will probably turn to the bad guy. Even though they're good now, they may turn bad in the future, just so they can provide for their family. I mean, a lot of people need to know how to network, learn how to work with people, but they put us under this quarantine to where we can't do that, which makes absolutely no sense in my opinion either. It makes sense to an extent. Let me rephrase that. I mean, I understand if there's a virus out there and it's actually killing people, we don't want to like commune and then potentially spread that virus furthermore. Although they are having talks about this 5G boiling the water, your respiratory system, your brain, and your reproductive system, and a lot of the signs and symptoms do kind of say that it's radiation poisoning. But I don't know nothing about 5G, so I won't dwell too much into that. But back to my point. Now, it makes sense they don't want us to go outside and get the virus. I get it. They want to keep us separated and far from each other and in our homes. But we're supposed to have a well-regulated militia. It's in our Constitution in times like this. But I guess they don't want that, which is why they're keeping us in our homes, which is probably why they took up our military, our veterans, and our retired guys, 1 million of them, and put them in the government so they can have control of them and not these guys wandering around in the streets and stuff along those lines. But not only that, we have the World Health Organization, the people pretty much who said we need to do quarantines and stuff along those lines, keep people in their homes. Now they're saying they need to come into the family unit and to come into our homes where we're safe at, where we're clean, where we're trying to prevent the virus from coming in. Now they want to come kick in our doors and come in our homes and see who's sick and stuff along those. I'm not saying they're going to kick in our doors, but pretty much that's what it seems like to me. How are you going to order us to stay in our homes, then you want to come in our homes while we're all segregated away from our brothers and sisters, our family unit and stuff like that, and keep us with just like, you know, my children. They just want to come up in here and then see who's sick. And I mean, I don't have no test on me, but I know ain't nobody in my house sick right now. They can just swab somebody in my house and say, oh yeah, he's sick, we need to take him. And they take him out the house, put him in the hospital. We already know we can't see them because we can't see them now, even though it's not like a real quarantine. So imagine if we go under a real quarantine to where I can't even leave the house. They take my child or my wife or whatever and go to the hospital, and then suppose that she dies 3 days later in the hospital. You think I'm gonna believe that crap? You think I'm gonna stand for that crap? I'd be damned. I doubt any of you will stand for that. If I know if I'm in my house and my family, we're doing good, and you just want to come here and potentially bring in the virus, or just say somebody has a virus and then take them from my home, no, we're gonna have a big problem. And I think that's when a lot of shit's gonna hit the fan when it comes to this thing, which is why they are taking control of the streets and getting the military where they need to be at. This stuff sounds premeditated, and it sounds pretty bad in my eyes, and I'm not agreeing with a lot of the things that they're doing, but I agree to an extent if this is what they say it is. But I'm gonna just leave it there. I'm gonna let you guys take it how you take it. I hope all you guys are doing what you need to do to better protect your family. I love you guys like I love my own, and God bless. You guys take care of yourselves.